Guys, and welcome back to the Barbell Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Lynn, and I forgot what I was saying because I was trying to turn the monitor down at the same time.
Welcome, book is what you said.
Sorry, a countdown got to three, and I was like, "Oh, I can't be pushing buttons while it's on," and then I freaked out.
This is a great intro. It's your best one.
Do you want to restart?
Nope.
No, book. I'm your host, Christina Lynn, and I'm here with my co-host, Marissa Roy. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of community and just kind of like the power of association within self-development as well as your health and fitness journey.
Yeah, this is actually really interesting that you brought this up this week because one of the few clients that I have that I work with, I brought this up with her this past week in her check-in because we're coming to the end of like our final contract after 3 years of working together and all this like just sadness. It's sad, but I'm happy for her. And I was kind of just like, listen, like we have these touch points. Where are your touch points on your own? Like who are your people that are value aligned, are working on these goals that you can talk about this with when I'm not bothering you every week. Like that's really what it's all about. And so I introduced a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today. So it's really interesting that you brought this up as a topic.
Yeah, I think because I was talking to a potential client last night who's a friend of ours or a friend of mine. And
I was going to say ours. How many
no, I
mutual friends
meant
do we have?
mine, friend of mine. We go way back, and we started with like bodybuilding, and now we're moms. And so we were just kind of talking about, and this is a theme we have with a lot of our mom clients, is like, they always say it takes a village to raise a child, but all of us moms are like, well, where's my village?
Yeah.
And so I was talking to her about how like, well, I don't have one, so I created one, and kind of talking about the value and the importance of having that community by your side, even if it is virtual, but just knowing someone is going through the same struggles as you, or someone is winning and you see someone do what you're trying to do. And so, having that kind of fresh in my mind, I was like, this would be a really good podcast topic.
Definitely. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, like you said, it doesn't matter about where this community comes from. It's just a matter of the fact that you have some people in your life that I think just when it comes to sticking with this journey, right? Like anyone can do something for 30 days, maybe even for 12 weeks. But I think in order to make this stick, like you can't just like be fighting your environment all the time. And so I know in the last episode we talked about like engineering your environment towards results with things and objects and like physical environment. But I think another piece of environment that is very under talked about is people. Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, who's in your household? Who do you see on a regular basis? Who do you talk to, text, call regularly? And like really think about how those people are in support of your goals, and not support like I support you, like verbal support of like it's so great that you're trying to lose weight. It's like support in the sense of like can relate or like
Mm-hmm.
understands or is going through it with you. And it doesn't mean they need to have the same goals. But I was actually writing a social media post about this. I'm excited to put out, and I love just bragging about my husband Aaron recently because he's been crushing it. But I've noticed just a strong uptick in my consistency and my dedication to my own goals because of his consistency and dedication to his goals. And so the post I was kind of writing, and you guys will see it come out on my page at some point because it's not ready yet, but it's just essentially about like what you think you need to do to support your spouse, or like what you think you need to do to support the people around you with their health, and what you actually need to do. What you think you need to do is like slap the food out of their hand or give them words of encouragement. And yeah, sometimes that's helpful, but I think more than anything, it's like walk the walk with the person. And it's like, it doesn't have to be your spouse. It truly doesn't. And I've seen amazing success from clients with spouses that really just kind of couldn't care less about health and just kind of let the person do what she does. But I think having people like that really does influence you, whether you realize it or not. And what I'll say too, and like this is kind of like a humble brag, but like I've noticed that when wherever we are, the people around us tend to like start taking their fitness and personal development more seriously. Like our friend group will kind of just watch us and observe us for a little while, and then all of a sudden, someone else is training for a half marathon. All of a sudden, they're asking about, okay, here's the macros that I'm, hitting. Like, what do you think about this? X, Y, and Z. It happened back when we were in Virginia, and it happened now, like where we are in North Carolina. I think I'm starting to see it kind of come to life. And it's interesting because once we left Virginia, like a lot of our friends kind of, they didn't fall off, but just less consistent a little bit, or like just not as big of a part of their life as it was when we were there. And so I firmly believe like you become the five people you surround yourself with. And that I think goes both ways. It's like you feed into others and others feed into you. So it's like more motivation to take your own journey seriously, but also I think it's important to surround yourself with people that can actively support what you're doing.
Yeah, and we are big fans of Alex and Layla Hermosi, right? And so I feel like their content has shifted a little bit, and Layla is talking a little bit more about relationships and like her relationship with Alex, which is I think it's super interesting. But she always talks about the importance of picking your spouse because this is your life partner, and that can make a huge difference in your trajectory in life. And so she has some personal anecdotes where she talks about friends of hers that like husbands weren't supportive and like businesses have failed kind of because of that. And so I think
Yeah.
there's a huge parallel with health and fitness. Like there's a big difference between when a client signs up and they have a supportive husband or supportive family versus someone who signs up and they are fighting like every step of the way and their journey is so much harder. Not to say that they both will like one will be more successful than the other, but like the likelihood of
Yeah,
that
just the
happening
likelihood.
is yeah. And so that's if you are someone who has a spouse who's not supportive, again, that does not mean that you're not going to reach your goals because you absolutely can, but it might be a little harder and you're going to have some more roadblocks. So the scenario that we've kind of brought up before is it is very difficult when you have two people in a relationship and they have the same tendencies, right? Like you order takeout all the time, like you're not very active, you don't go to the gym, you like to, binge watch Netflix or do whatever, and you have one person who wants to start changing. It can be very threatening to the other person who does not want to change that aspect of their lifestyle. And so a lot of times people butt heads, and we've I've talked about this reel before where it's like this woman wants to eat ice cream. She tells her husband like, "Oh, do you want to eat like ice cream with me?" And he's like, "No." And she's like, "What? What do you mean?" And he's like, "You can have some." She's like, "I don't want some if you're not having some." And he's like, "I don't want it." She's like, "You need to eat it because I want to eat it." And they get into this huge argument. He's like, "Fine, I'll eat it." But that is very true. I would never, and I use this example all the time. Like I would never just like make a DiGiorno by myself to eat a DiGiorno by myself. Like that's something like my husband and I like to do, and
Yeah.
like it's the same thing with him. He would never make one, and so it's like it kind of threatens those things.
Yeah.
So the other interesting thing that I've seen too is like spouses, like one person will start making a change, and in your example, the person who doesn't really care, so like you just kind of watch the spouse like start making some changes and maybe they're happier, maybe they're more confident, or they're doing all these things, and then the spouse is kind of like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like I kind of want to do a little bit of that too, especially if you're not pushy about it.
Yeah.
So I've definitely seen that where it's like my husband will be like, "Oh, you were right." Like if I started drinking more water and my headaches went away, or I started eating more protein and I started feeling better and like had more energy throughout the day and I wasn't as hungry all the time. So all that to say, like, yeah, it can be tough, but it can be difficult when it comes to like changing the dynamic of how you are used to doing things in a relationship.
Yeah. And that goes for friendships too, right? Of
Hmm.
like everybody goes out and drinks all the time. Like if you start changing that, like what happens? People, what? Oh no, you're no fun. You're a buzzkill. Blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And then, but like the other side of that, and like I've only like sort of been this person because I kind of from the start was always like this, but like first couple reactions I get are like, "Are you sure? Are you sure you don't want to drink?" And I'm like, I'm good. I'm happy. I'll drive. And then after like 2, 3 times, they don't even ask anymore. And they know it's not being rude. It's just, they don't ask. Or like, hey, the real ones, the real friends, they go, Diet Coke? And I'm like, yep. And that's what we do right away. But I was thinking like the really important question to answer on this show is, where do we find these people? Where do we find these people that are going to be augmenting our journey and moving us forward if we don't have them in our life? Maybe we didn't pick the spouse that's like on board and wants to do this with us. It's like, okay, that's okay. But
Yeah.
that just makes it more important that you find those friends that can be that for you. Because, you know, your friends aren't going to fill every cup in your life. Your spouse isn't going to fill every single cup in your life. So I know we were talking about social media being a big piece of
Yeah.
that. That's how we found each other, right? Yeah, technically,
Yeah.
yeah.
Technically, yes. So I want to say too, I was thinking about this because I can't remember when exactly I made this comment to my husband, but I was like, man, I'm really gonna have to get in shape postpartum. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, our friend group now. I was like, all of my friends go to the like we all go to the same gym together, and like my friends are like super fit. And I was like, I'm gonna have to like get back to like fit in. But I was kind of like I all in like a joking matter, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not bouncing back and like all this stuff. But it was like, kind of joking, but also like not, because it's like that like our friend group
It's
is
a culture.
very, yeah, it's very fit now, and like we go to the gym, and like not everyone like drinks, and like kind of what you're saying, like I have definitely gone away from it. I mean, I've been pregnant and or breastfeeding for like
For a
four
long
four
time.
years, yeah, for like 4 years straight, and I'm probably gonna go for another like 6 or 7, 8. I don't know. It's kind of like wild to think about,
Crazy.
but like I also just don't get like wild and crazy anymore, and like I don't really like that feeling. So like personally, like I don't want to go out and like go to the bars and like all those things. So but yeah, I just thought that was interesting, and I was thinking about it, I'm like, wow, like all of my friends, like we all go to the same gym. Like we
Yeah.
live in a very small town. There are like only
Yeah.
a few gyms to go to, but like we're like at the one big gym in our hometown, so like everyone goes there. But I was like that another reason why I was thinking about this episode. Um, but yeah, so to your point, like what do you do if you don't have that? If you don't have that in your life, so social media, that is huge, and you can kind of create your own community. And that doesn't mean, again, you have to put fit at the end of your name and
Yeah.
like,
No,
do all
not
these
at
things, but just something as simple as like posting your health and fitness journey. Like you are more than likely going to connect with some people and make friends. And it is like, even though you have a virtual friend, like online or on social media, that can make a huge difference
Yeah.
because you're excited and like you're sharing some things with them, and like they're sharing things with you. And maybe it starts off as like one person, but then all of a sudden you have a couple more friends, and like you have friends within the same friend group. Like that can be really, really big.
Yeah. I know that like honestly a lot of really good friends that I've made have been through social media in some regard. I don't think I can't remember if there's like a lot of people that I keep up with now, but like in a certain phase of my life, it was exactly what I needed. And it was a phase of my life where I was completely alone. Like I was just doing me, and I think especially when yeah, you either just like don't have that fitness community because now it's like I go to a CrossFit gym and like that's honestly that's why CrossFit's so successful because they're founded upon community. So people go because yeah, they get a good workout, but they go to see their friends. They go to suffer alongside the same people they suffer with at 5:30 in the morning every morning. And it's a culture of community, camaraderie, cheering each other on. And honestly, I have to say, like, even though I don't do the classes and I just use the gym for like my gym workouts, I every day I look forward to going and talking shit and seeing my friends, like just having a good time on top of getting my workout in. And so, like, I think whether it's joining something like Group Class E to like give you that community that's kind of built into the culture there. I know that you and I both in our coaching companies have community calls where honestly, there's regulars that are there every
Mm-hmm.
week that they get to know each other, and then we have our live event once a year, and they meet in person, and it's like, oh my god, you're exactly like you are online, and it's so cool. And it's different. It's weird for like people who just weren't like grew up without the digital age, but like it's still a way of connecting. And I think what's really important, if let's say you're anything older than a millennial, is to stop discrediting the power that that can have and like lean into it. And then if you are a millennial, Gen Z, like just I mean just keep doing it, I guess, because that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I was thinking about it because my parents were here. They were visiting our newborn. They were visiting with Kaylee and like our family, and they were talking about getting back into working out. I don't know how that topic came up, but they were like, "Oh yeah, we need to start doing like classes again." But like we don't have classes here, like where they had moved. Like they had that back in Virginia, where they would again they'd go to the gym and they'd
Yeah.
take this kettlebell class, and it wasn't necessarily the style of training that they loved, but it was just the camaraderie. And like if you missed a class the next week, they were like, "Where were you?" Or you're getting text messages, "We missed you at class today," and that can be a make a really big difference because if you're going to the gym and you're working out by yourself, like you're not gonna
Yeah.
have anyone who says like, "Where were you?" Like you're showing up for yourself, and that can make a really big difference. And that's definitely something that I had done like when I was in college, because at our rec center, like they'd have tons of classes all the time, but you had to go and sign up like online when the spots became available. And if you'd go and check in at the gym, you'd do swipe your card, and I guess I don't even really remember how it works. But if you didn't show, you got like fined, or you got like docked, or like after a
Yeah.
few no shows, you like weren't allowed to like do it anymore because they would only accept a few number of people because that's all they would have room for. So if you weren't showing up, like they'd dock you. So you had this incentive to go. And so I was like, okay, well, if I sign up, that will force me to go to the gym. And so that's kind of what I did to get myself into the habit of going. But not really much of a community there. But in like real life, like not
Yeah.
college. Or I
Yeah.
mean, I guess you could find that, but at least I didn't when I was going, but it did help me get there. So I know that that can make a really big difference.
Yeah. Well, I feel like on that, it's like, okay, you might try one class and be like, I don't vibe with anyone here. That's
Hmm.
okay. But like, number one, you got to give people a chance. You got to give yourself a chance. So like, it's actually pretty funny. At the CrossFit gym that I go to, the running joke, like a lot of times when we talk about first impressions, there was a girl there who she's like super friendly, and like she would like kind of like try to, make small talk during the class and like get to know me. And I was kind of like honestly just tired and like in my zone. And apparently I said a few things that like really shut her down, and she was like, okay, Marissa's she's not wanting to talk today. Then we got to know each other. Like we're like such good friends. We really hit it off. But like she always gives me shit for like, Marissa, I literally thought you hated me for like 6 months. And it took me so long to warm up to two people in the gym. So like I'm saying this because this is how I am. You got to give people a chance. And I think if I could go back, I would have opened up, made some jokes, made some small talk sooner. Like if I knew that I would have found like my people there. But I was like, no, I'm tired. I'm just going to go through the motions today. I don't want to talk to anyone. And I thought, the gym serves a purpose for that. So, I think if you are lacking that community, it's just kind of flipping that switch and like turning on like, well, let me just like say hi to people and be polite and like ask them what they do, or how long they've been going to this gym or whatever, and just like start a conversation. That's all it takes, right? And then you
Yeah.
can you can very quickly like know that you're hitting it off with someone or not, and like finding those gym regulars like that you smile at, you nod at, or maybe eventually you hang out outside the gym. But that's really how it how it started, was 6 months of me not talking to anyone, and then eventually someone broke through the ice. Oh, I think Aaron actually, he went and hung out with some of the guys, came
Mm.
back and was like, "These people are pretty cool." And then I started opening up. So But I'm sure that doesn't
Well,
surprise you.
yeah, no, because what, 9, 10 years ago when we met for the first time, like the first thing you said was, wow, you're really short in person. I was like, cool, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But look, we're
Here we
best
are.
friends and we have a podcast together.
Here we are.
Look at us.
Yeah. Almost a
um,
decade.
I think all this to say, like you can find your community, and it might take a little bit of time, and it might take some trial and error. It might be in person, might be virtual, it might be a combination of both. But
Yeah.
it's really pivotal, not just with health and fitness, but just anything in
All
life.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all things, and just making sure that you are surrounding yourself with others who are going to lift you up. And I think that that is really, really, really important. And so, um, and I think that it's like, okay, also distancing, maybe not just finding a community and like gravitating to that, but also kind of the idea of like dropping dead weight or like distancing yourselves from people who are, I hate the overused phrase, like cut like toxic people out of your life, right? Like, cause I feel like it's so overused and people will just be like, cut, like I'm just cutting you out of my life.
Yeah.
But really, if you feel like you have a friend who like all they want to do is like go to the bar, all they want to do is like do drugs, or like all they want to do is like these things that you were like maybe that aligned with you in previous versions of yourself, but it doesn't suit you and your needs now. And so again, that doesn't mean that you have to just cut them out of your life or they say one thing and that's it. But just distancing yourself and maybe just not
Yeah.
hanging out with them as much as or trying to be like, hey, instead of going to a bar, like, do you want to go grab coffee, like instead of a happy hour, or like, do you want to go on a walk, or like, so trying to change those things up, or kind of voicing your needs. So this was actually something that my husband and I, like, we were talking with our friend group, and just kind of on the topic of like drinking, and like we were talking about earlier, and it's like, yeah, we just don't really do it that often. And kind of, they were like, our friends were like, yeah, we just kind of do it like once a month. And we're like, oh, it's kind of like a cool, and not like,
Yeah.
counting down the days, but it just kind of like needs to be like a bigger event and not just something that you do all the time. And so it was kind of cool to be like, hey, cool. Like, yeah, we're on board with that too. And so it's like, now we have that, like, hey, if we go out to dinner and we both aren't ordering drinks, like, that's cool because we're both doing that, and you feel a little bit more supported in your decision and less likely to be pressured into doing something that you feel like I didn't want to do.
Yeah. Definitely. It's critical. I think just not only for success in your journey, but for like happiness,
Mm-hmm.
enjoyment of life, of the process. Like life is better with people. Like I love having my people here, my people online, my people on the podcast, my people at work. Like it's great to surround yourself with people that you really love. And I think um just kind of to wrap it up, I feel like just remember that you have a say in that. Like, I think there's that whole like chosen family versus like a family that you have. And I mean, yeah, you have family that is like, you're related to, you're probably going to have to interact with them whether you like it or not. But like everyone else, just remember you have a choice with who you associate yourself with and who you don't. And just got to cut the people pleasing off at the knees and really prioritize that for your well-being and ultimately for all goals that you want to reach in life.
Yeah. And one last thing that I was thinking about is, again, going back to our office hours as well, I was thinking about it. We have some clients who, were a little bit shy and just kind of would hop on and not really say a whole lot or know what to say. And over time, as they watched other people open up and share their wins and share their struggles, felt like allowed them to feel more secure in sharing their own. And
Yeah.
it's been really, really cool to watch some of those clients really blossom
Yeah.
and become such a big part in our community. And
Yeah.
it's been really, really, really cool. And so I do want to just kind of end on the idea of like, it is very, very powerful to share not just your wins, but also your struggles. And I feel like that's really how you can like relate and open up to others. And, very similar to how Marissa and I got started, especially mine on social media. Like I was so embarrassed to start my fit. account. And that was like a thing, like again, 10 years
Yeah.
ago, that it was anonymous. It was like, I didn't show my face. I didn't really show anything about me or like anything. And like, once I reached 100 followers, I told my husband, well, boyfriend at the time, I told him about it. And, you know, I had no idea it would take me to where I am now.
Yeah.
But being open and sharing those things like gained more and more traction. And so I feel like it's, you might think like, I don't know, like who's going to listen or who cares or who, you know, whatever. Just the power of sharing can go a really, really long way. You never know who you might impact or inspire along the way of sharing your journey. So I definitely do encourage you to open up, whether it's, you know, sharing on social media or sharing in a community or whatever that might be. Like the power of it is just, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. For every one hater, there's 10 people that benefit, and it's all
Hmm.
worth it.
Yeah, yeah. So they always say that what you're the average of the five people that you surround yourself with, like the most. And so I do think that that is very true and very powerful.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
awesome, guys. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You can find both of us on Instagram. You can find me at Christy Lynn Fit. You can find Marissa at Marissa Roy Fitness. Thank you guys so much for listening. We hope to see you back next week.